and Cemetery Board. Okay. So we'll follow the same format that we followed for City Council and Mayor, but we'll do School Board first, and then we'll do Cemetery Board. So Brian Kennedy is running for District 5, or Zone 5 rather. And Brian, if you would take 2 minutes to introduce yourself, and then I'll fire some questions at you. 2.
This is on. Okay, great. Thanks, Lauren. Thank you all for sticking around for the extra innings. A few other thanks to give. Thanks to Margaret Dibble for being my treasurer. Thanks to Stephen Daly Larson, who's walking away right there, who brought me and my wife here 20 years ago. And thanks to my wife, who has been invested in the Moscow School District for the last 20 years with me. I am a professor at the university of 20 years in the College of Natural Resources. I'm an ecologist. The other thing to know about me is that I've served on the board for 7 years. I took over a position when Suna, who's also in the crowd, got a job at the middle school, and Martha Schmidt was looking for neighborhood volunteers to take over her position. At the time, it was important to me as the father of a high schooler and a middle schooler. The school district has meant so much to us. I think it's the lifeblood. I think it's the keystone of our community, as you know, it kind of underlays some of the conversations that you had. There are big issues and there are local issues. Big issues have to do with and maybe a question will come about House Bill 93, the voucher bill, that stands to unconstitutionally take money away from our public school systems. And then there are local issues like our facilities and the need to upgrade facilities that are at the youngest 60 years old. So I'm happy. I don't know what questions will come, but I will expand. I will just say that I am here because I am passionate about public education. It is killing me to not actually be at the school board right now, and I thought that it would be tomorrow night, but my opponent, who I have heard nothing from and who I know nothing about, has chosen not to participate in this. And so if you live in Zone 5, which I'll get to at the closing.
Okay, I need to ask you a question. You need to stop your intro, and I'm going to ask you a question that you've actually already touched on, and hope that this question would come up. What is your position on the school voucher parental choice tax credit program recently signed into law by our governor? Why or why not? And please support your answer.
Okay, well, as you know, the Moscow School District signed on to a lawsuit in order to sue that bill. House Bill 93, call it a voucher bill, call it a tax credit. It's $50 million that goes by $5,000 per student to any private student who qualifies, which the qualification is very low. I am completely 100% against it. I am 100% for the lawsuit, and if I have a couple of seconds, then I will just say, right, like Article 9 of our state constitution says that the stability of our Republican form of government depends upon an intelligent populace, right? And that's how it starts out. And so it doesn't say that the stability of our government is dependent upon a civic society. It doesn't say a wealthy economy. It says the education and intelligence of our populace. I think that means different things to other people, but I think, like all of the issues that you just saw here, the environment, the housing, the budget and finance of this city, all of that, we are here because we are interested in that. And at some point in your elementary or secondary education, a teacher got you excited about that. And so I am absolutely against it, and I'll leave it there, and I'm happy to answer any other questions related to it.
Okay, thank you. We're going to keep Brian up here for a few minutes, since he's the only one running for school board who is here. What is your position on providing free breakfast and lunch for low-income students at schools in our district? Why or why not? And please support your answer.
And please support
your answer.
100% for it. There are, depending upon which schools we have, we have a fair number of families that qualify. This is an important part of our district not just during the school year, but during the summer. And during the summer, we've served a record number of breakfasts and lunches to families. Some of that is out of the school budget. Some of that comes out of community donations. 100% for it, and there's no reason when we're talking about much larger deficits in the state budget to not be serving our underserved students with lunches and breakfast. An important part of the day.
All right, great, thank you. We didn't use much of your time on that.
Okay.
Do you think librarians and teachers in Moscow's public schools are distributing pornographic and woke materials to students? This was a question that came to us. Please support your answer.
Okay, and so I'm looking to see if there are librarians in the crowd. Faye and Paige and Anita are not distributing pornographic material. Section 6 of our board policy has a very codified way of dealing with age-appropriate material, distributing that, how we even acquire it. That said, so these are fairly short possibilities for answers. So no is the short answer. And if people are concerned, there is a process for doing something about it, lodging a complaint. We have lots of safeguards. Even if there were something that somebody deemed pornographic, as a parent, you have the ability to have leverage over what your students can certainly check out and perhaps even see in the library. And again, everything that we have is acquired with legitimate educational purpose and age and distributed age appropriate.
All right, thank you. And we heard that same message from our library board candidates not too long ago. Lastly, what can Moscow School District do to address the loss of state and federal resources for students with special needs?
Write to your legislators. So yeah, I believe Karen is talking about 4 years now that the state has operated at a deficit for special education. The funding equation is broken, and you might not be surprised to hear that our need across the state is increasing. We've covered this as a district because of actions that were taken before we even moved here. A permanent levy supports our district at a rate that's higher than most districts can benefit from. And so I forget if the question was, what would I do about it? There are options on the table at the state level, right? And so the state, you may have heard, is operating at a deficit. This special education deficit is on the order of 80 to 100 million. The state superintendent, Critchfield, has a plan to request 50 million of that, which would buffer what happens in the next year. There's the possibility that other funding programs, there's a micro grant program that went away, that 30 million could gap stop the special education deficit. But this is not a new problem. It's just a bigger problem this year. It's going to be a bigger problem for districts that are not as well supported by the community as Moscow. In the meantime, what are some of the real problems on the ground? we have fewer special ed teachers per student than, for example, our ratio is perhaps as low. I think Ohio and Idaho are the two lowest at 20 special education teachers per 200 students. That with needs, that needs to go up, and yeah. So.
All right.
Yep.
So that was the last question that came in advance. So if you'd like to do a summary statement.
Sure, 1 minute. Okay, let me just be clear because not everybody understands how school board elections work. There are 5 zones. You only vote if you're in my zone. So if I'm not on your ballot, you're not in my zone. Don't panic. You have the right ballot. Zone 5, I have a map right here. Zone 5 is to the west, behind Tri-State, all the way to Viola. It wraps around all the way south to the new highway, Jack Shaw. Margaret Dibble might be the southern end of the zone. So that is Zone 5. I would love to have your vote. Again, I am here. My opponent is not. I really think that there's nothing serious about his candidacy. I've heard nothing. So if you're in Zone 5, I'd appreciate maintaining the great work we're doing in the schools, the stability that we have on the board currently. I didn't even get to talk about all the good things that we're doing. We need new facilities, but we've got a new superintendent in the past 2 years, and the board works well together. And as long as that continues, it makes our lives easier, it makes the superintendent's lives easier, and it makes the teachers' lives easier. And I think we're in a pretty good spot right now. So thanks.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Brian. All right, moving on to the cemetery board. Our candidates are Cheyenne Stoops and Bill Twigg. And if you would introduce yourselves, you have 2 minutes each to introduce yourselves. Cheyenne, you can go first.
Hello. First off, I want to say thank you for all those who stayed. I know it's a really late night. It's already 9 p.m., so I'm sure for myself alone, that's also past my own bedtime. So I completely understand. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Cheyenne Stoops. I've been in the city of Moscow for 5 years now. Born and raised in Southern California. Moved up here because of family and friends. Went to U of I, got my bachelor's in criminology with an emphasis in criminal behavior. I was a prior law enforcement officer with Moscow PD. Now I'm working at Moscow Building Supply as a rental desk assistant. I'm really passionate in volunteering in our community. I'm actually part of the Latah County Emergency Response Team. That's a big system that provides emergency preparedness through the county. We provide free classes, first Wednesday of the month, and we also work along with the Sheriff's Department if we're deployed by the emergency manager to actually go to different disasters throughout the community. We actually have gone to a few fires the past couple of years to help with security purposes, ensuring that we take license plate to ensure that people actually make it back out and aren't stuck in their homes because of fires. I'm super big on volunteering for the community. Seeing that there was, a running for cemetery district, it's a great way to volunteer to honor and respect those veterans, family members, loved ones, friends that are buried in the cemetery, and I want to be able to provide the best resources and the means necessary to fit our budget required for the cemetery. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Cheyenne. Bill?
I've been in town since about 71. I was a student, and after graduating, I never left. Somewhere around 1982, started a little business just east of town, building and restoring horse-drawn carriages for building buggies, wagons, sleighs with wheels. In a discussion with my wife over that, because I've been doing that as a bit of a hobby for a couple of years. And home one day and said, "What do you think about me quitting my job and making a go of this?" She says, "Well, I think you're crazy, but sure." As as we visited more, realized that I had the ability to make stuff and fix stuff. The other thing we realized was that for whatever reason, people like to come to me and talk about life. So my world is split between the two. While I have the carriage world going, the wonderful thing about it is anytime somebody wants to come and talk, I have the freedom to put my tools down and talk. And that kind of stuff goes on. 15 years ago, with the recession, the carriage world died. So right now, I guess I would say that I'm semi-retired and I run around town fixing stuff. Restaurants, houses, whatever it is, I just fix stuff and do a lot of talking with people. 2 or 3 years ago, Danny Hood, who had been on this board for quite a while, said he was tired and wondered if I would take his place. And I said, sure. So I've been on this board for 2 or 3 years as an appointed seat, and now I'm up for election.
All right, thank you. All right, our question that just came in from the group, and I think we really should start with this, is what is a cemetery board? And what do board members do or decide? And Bill, since you've been on the board and you just mentioned that, why don't you start with that?
The cemetery board is, whether you want to say govern, manage, whatever. There's 3 of us, there's 3 board members. And the whole idea is keep the cemetery operating the way it should. There's 3 full-time employees and an office manager. So it's doing a lot of lawn mowing and watering during the summer, snow removal during the winter, digging holes and filling them back up.
Okay, Cheyenne, do you want to add to that?
So this was an interesting position to look into, because when you look up Moscow Cemetery District, you don't find a whole lot. I actually dug and looked into some Idaho code to figure out what the district was. It's actually a position that maintains the beautification of the cemetery and maintains the sales of graves, plots, maintaining the property taxes that come from those, the cost of those plots, along with having to ensure that if there's resales, that it's going through the proper process for that as well. We're also there to ensure that our budgeting, we control budgeting for the cemetery district. And our budgeting goes towards the beautification, plots, resales, things that I just mentioned previously. It also requires saving money as well, so that we can budget in things for the future, like the possible well rebuild that has to come up, because if we don't do that, it may be a problem in the future for those who have plots there at the cemetery. So we do a lot putting our hands in this, and I know Bill's had to take on it for a couple of years, and I'm sure he's had meetings where he's had to talk about budgeting, future plans, projects, putting aside funds for those, and possibly little things like the haunted tours that they do for October. So those are super fun. If you have a chance, you should definitely do it.
All right, thank you. Well, stay where you are, because we're alternating who goes first.
Yeah.
So whoever's standing is going to stay standing. So the question is direct burial without a monument or a casket allowed in cemeteries here? If not, should it be, and under what limitations?
Oh, that is a great question. Again, this was a lot of things where I had to do some digging about what is okay and not okay, what's allowed in cemeteries, in terms of what is allowed, what is not allowed. And that's just something that when I had dug through Idaho code, there wasn't, at least from my reading the 5 chapters that was of it, I definitely had issues finding that. And so, you know, if I get voted to the position, that's something that I definitely do some research on, and that's something that should definitely be educated to the community. Because I'm sure those of you that, unless you buried somebody there, I'm sure you don't know if that's actually something you can or can't do. So, me personally, I tried digging for it. I'm sure it was somewhere within the bunch of pages that I have in front of me, but I'm sure Bill has a response for that better than I do. So.
All right, thank you. Bill?
I don't have much of a response. To my knowledge, we've never been asked to do that, so I don't know what the laws may or may not be regarding that, and never even thought about it.
All right, stay where you are. We'll go on to the next question. Cemeteries can be resource intensive, using lots of water to maintain large expanses of property. What is your position on potentially modifying practices to render them more resource efficient? And provide examples if you have some.
I don't know that we are heading into trying to be more resource efficient other than putting in newer sprinkler heads, newer things that do a more efficient job of moving water around. The direction we're wanting to go is to drill our own well. Currently, we are paying the city of Moscow for water. It's getting expensive. We know what the cost is. We're seriously looking into drilling our own well, and within a year that will be paid off. And so from there on, it's primarily just electricity. So that has very little to do with resource use, but just the efficiency or financial efficiency of having our own well.
All right, thank you. Cheyenne?
That's always the funny part about going second. He definitely took my standpoint on it. From hearing about the future of Moscow Sanitary District and the needs for maintaining that land, for that water surplus that does get used, I'm sure all you know, in order to maintain the cemetery and the looks that it has, there's a lot of water usage. So finding ways to see if, again, the systems that we use that run through the entire cemetery, could we possibly make them more efficient and use less water, but still maintain that beautiful look that cemetery has during the spring. I'm also for getting that well situated. If that well doesn't get processed, which from the sounds of it looks like that's already in motion, but if it doesn't get finalized, the issue is Moscow City is actually going to bump up those prices. That means the taxes that the community members are paying goes up. That means plots go up. That means the services that we can provide may go down because we have to then pay for this increase of cost for water usage and maintaining a water system through the city. So having that well would actually, over time, saving money, budgeting for it, building it, would actually maintain our services properly for those who are buried there, for the families that are burying their individuals and friends and families in the future there. So I do believe that the well would be a great way for us to at least maintain the services and probably be able to reduce what we need to at a later time.
All right, thank you. Okay, next, we're going to start with you.
Oh, yes.
So, last question. Cemeteries have traditionally been divided by old and new sections and expand into undeveloped portions to accommodate new family plots, even when old sections have space. As land use demands intensify and real estate values increase around town, and at the risk of coming off as insensitive, this is not my question, it's the way it was written, should cemeteries incentivize infill in much the same way as cities do to limit sprawl?
Yeah, so this is a great question. This is actually a part of Idaho code that applies where if a family has a plot of land that is not used within 50 years, they actually have to go to the city clerk and the secretary and everything and make a written statement to continue that claim for their plot of land. It's actually a process that is set in the state code. So that is something as a cemetery district we're actually supposed to follow. And then we can make other changes in terms of what other terms we have in place for those, the amount of time, what other processes it may take. But in that purpose of sprawling, I mean, you're also allowed to sell plots as well. So if somebody owns a plot, over time, if they haven't used it, they can actually resell that plot. And then at a future date, they can then take over another plot that is not being used. That is also something in Idaho code. So again, that's just something that we should utilize. We are asked to follow Idaho code to keep the cemetery the way it is. If we don't follow those things, you know, the cemetery can have issues with the state and the county because of that. So there are ways to prevent that sprawling within Idaho code. So as long as we follow those and maintain that, and we incentivize families that have that 50-year max and be like, hey, you know, maybe we can have you resell this land and have you then pick a different land further on to another family that needs it, then we can avoid that.
All right, thank you. Bill?
Yes, there's a number of plots that have been purchased years ago, and apparently there's nobody to put in them and no descendants that are interested. But legally, we're still trying to figure out the legal ramifications and how to we'll say, reclaim those plots. As far as being more efficient, is not, other than doing that, have not spent a whole lot of time trying to be more efficient. We do have land to expand onto, and we are steadily saving money to be able to procure more land, let's say 10, 20 years down the road, when and if it's needed.
Okay, thank you. So those are all the questions that were submitted. So if you would just want to do a summary statement or just a final thought, Bill?
I'm happy to be on the board. If you vote for me, I'll stay on, and if not, I won't.
That's about as succinct as it gets.
Again, I want to just thank you all for staying. I know this one, a little bit longer than asked, but we appreciate you staying. I thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I appreciate the time and effort for reaching out to us and doing all that. I thank Bill for coming on and doing this. I know, last minute that kind of happened. But as somebody who is new to this, if you do vote for me, I really do want to put my time and effort on making sure we find ways in our budget to keep the beautification of the cemetery, honor those that are there, that are buried there, make sure and ensure that well gets put in and is budgeted properly to do so, as well as find different ways that we could maintain and provide options for you guys to be able to find minutes, information on meetings, when our meetings are held, because I know for me, I had a hard time finding anything, and I'm sure those of you that don't know the cemetery district did as well.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you all for coming. You are the reason democracy works. They are also the reason democracy works. Thank you, League of Women Voters. Thank you.